What if the stones that have stood for millennia in the shadow of the Lebanese mountains were not merely monuments to ancient gods, but the silent guardians of a secret buried deep beneath the earth? Beneath the towering columns of the so-called sunken temple at Baalbek, scholars hear a faint echo that has persisted through ages, a whisper of a civilization that vanished long before the Romans ever laid their marble foundations. The site, known locally as the Temple of the Sun, rises from a massive platform of limestone blocks, each weighing hundreds of tons, some still defying modern engineering. Yet, the most perplexing feature lies not in the towering trilithons, but in the hollowed chambers that lie under the main sanctuary, chambers that were deliberately sealed and forgotten. When early 20th century excavators first pried open a narrow fissure, they uncovered a network of tunnels carved with a precision that rivals the Great Pyramids. The walls bore markings unlike any Phoenician script, composed of interlocking spirals and angular symbols that have never been conclusively deciphered. Some researchers suggest these passages were used as storage for sacred relics, but the sheer scale of the void, spanning over 300 meters in length, hints at something far more ambitious. Radiocarbon dating of organic residue found within the tunnels places their construction at least 500 years ago, predating the Roman renovations by a full millennium. A handful of stone tools, fashioned from obsidian not native to the region, were also recovered, indicating trade or migration from distant lands. The mystery deepens when seismic studies revealed a subtle, rhythmic tremor that resonates through the limestone every few years, as if the earth itself is breathing. Local folklore tells of a guardian spirit that awakens when the stones vibrate, protecting the hidden heart of the temple. Some ancient texts speak of a vault of light, a repository said to contain a luminous stone that could illuminate the heavens. To this day, the lower chambers remain sealed, their entrances blocked by massive monoliths that have never been moved. Modern laser scanning cannot penetrate the dense rock, and attempts to drill have been halted by unexplained equipment failures. Is it simply the weight of history, or does Baalbek conceal a power source, an astronomical device, or perhaps a cache of knowledge that ancient peoples deemed too dangerous to reveal? The answer remains buried, waiting for the day when a new generation dares to step into the darkness and listen to the stone's silent confession. Until then, the sunken temple of Baalbek stands as a looming enigma, an ancient puzzle that refuses to be solved, casting a long, unanswered question over the very foundations of our past. Imagine a lone silhouette rising from the endless dunes, its stone faces half-carved, its apex forever missing, an ancient promise halted in the heart of the Sahara. The unfinished pyramid, a monolith that has puzzled archaeologists for decades, stands as a silent testimony to a civilization that dared to dream beyond the horizon, and then, without warning, abandoned its grandest ambition. What drove the builders to leave this colossal structure half-finished? Its limestone blocks still rough from the quarry, its chambers echoing only with the wind. The story begins around 2600 BCE, when the great kingdoms of the Nile began to look westward, drawn by rumors of fertile oases and untapped mineral veins. A powerful ruler, perhaps a forgotten pharaoh or a desert king, commissioned a pyramid to rival those at Giza, hoping to cement his name across the sands. The foundation was laid with meticulous precision. The base measures over 180 meters on each side, aligning perfectly with the cardinal points, just as the Egyptian pyramids do. Workers chiseled massive limestone slabs, their tools striking the stone with a rhythm that resonated through the desert night. But then, something changed. Excavations reveal a layer of dust and sand that appears to have settled while construction was still in progress, a sign that the workforce vanished abruptly. Some scholars propose a severe drought that dried the Nile, cutting off the grain supplies essential to sustain such a massive labor force. Others suggest a sudden shift in political power, perhaps a coup or the death of the patron, leaving the project without a champion. A third theory, more speculative, points to an astronomical omen. Ancient tablets found nearby record a great darkening of the sky in the year the pyramid was begun, possibly a massive solar storm that terrified the people and was interpreted as a divine warning. The unfinished apex itself offers clues. Unlike the smooth, polished limestone of the lower levels, the upper stones are rough, unfinished, and some bear strange, spiraling incisions, symbols not seen elsewhere in Egyptian or Nubian art. Could these be a lost script, a warning etched by the workers who sensed an impending catastrophe. Or perhaps they are the remnants of a ritual meant to seal the pyramid's power, left incomplete when the ritual could not be performed. Even the surrounding landscape holds mysteries. A network of underground tunnels stretches beneath the pyramid, connecting to a series of buried wells that still contain water, remarkably fresh after millennia. Some researchers argue these wells were part of a sophisticated irrigation system that failed, turning the desert into an insurmountable barrier. Others wonder whether the tunnels were intended as a secret burial chamber for a ruler whose name was erased from history. No definitive answer has emerged, and each new shard, each grain of sand, only deepens the enigma. The unfinished pyramid stands as a haunting reminder that even the mightiest of human endeavors can be halted by forces we may never fully understand. As the sun sets behind its half-built silhouette, the desert whispers a question that still haunts scholars. What unseen hand reached into the past and forced the builders to abandon their dream, leaving a monument forever caught between ambition and oblivion? Deep in the remote highlands of southern China, where mist clings to towering cliffs like a living shroud, lies a place that has whispered its secrets to the wind for millennia. The Shillin, known to the world as the Stone Forest, is a labyrinth of limestone pillars that rise from the earth in jagged, almost sentient formations. At first glance, they appear to be mere geological curiosities, sculpted by erosion over eons. Yet those who have walked its winding paths speak of a deeper, more unsettling phenomenon. The stones seem to speak. Local Yi villagers have told outsiders for generations that, when the sun dips below the jagged horizon and the forest is cloaked in twilight, a faint susurration ripples through the stone columns. It is not the wind, they insist, but a language, low, rhythmic, almost melodic, emanating from the very rock itself. Researchers who have set up recording equipment in the forest capture a low-frequency hum, a series of resonances that rise and fall in patterns that defy random geological noise. What makes this hum truly puzzling is its structure. Acoustic analyses reveal repeating sequences, intervals that correspond to musical intervals, and occasional pauses that resemble punctuation. Some scholars compare the pattern to an ancient tonal language, suggesting that the stone may be encoding information. One fringe theory, proposed by a handful of geophysicists, posits that the limestone's crystalline lattice, under specific temperature and humidity conditions, can act like a giant resonant chamber, amplifying subterranean seismic vibrations into audible tones. Yet this explanation fails to account for the unmistakable rhythmic regularity, something that would be absent in a purely natural resonance. A handful of daring explorers have attempted to decode the stone speech. Using spectrograms and pattern recognition algorithms, they have identified clusters that repeat across days, weeks, and even seasons. Intriguingly, the clusters align with lunar cycles, hinting at a possible connection to ancient rituals that once honored the moon's influence on the Earth. No consensus has been reached, and the Yi elders remain wary of outsiders prying into what they consider a sacred communion between their ancestors and the stones. The mystery deepens when we consider the forest's own origin. The pillars were formed during the Jurassic period, when this region was a shallow sea. Over millions of years, the limestone was uplifted and exposed, then carved by rain and wind into the eerie silhouettes we see today. Could a language have been etched into the rock when it was still marine sediment, a fossilized echo of a forgotten civilization that once lived beneath these waters? Some archaeologists, noting the presence of ancient petroglyphs hidden in the crevices, argue that early inhabitants might have used the stones as a vast, natural, recording device, inscribing their stories in vibration rather than pigment. The stone forest continues to guard its whispers. Modern instruments pick up the low hum, but the code remains stubbornly undeciphered. As night falls and the forest breathes, the stones pulse with a faint, haunting cadence, an invitation, a warning, or perhaps a lament from an age long vanished. In the silence that follows, one cannot help but wonder, are we listening to the Earth's memory, or merely hearing our own imagination echo through stone? The answer, for now, lies buried among the endless pillars, waiting for a mind brave enough to translate a language that has never been meant for us. The night over Lonar is a hush that seems to swallow sound itself, and when the moon finally dares to rise, it paints the crater's black-rimmed basin with a thin, trembling silver. Yet it is the water that steals the breath of anyone who looks down into the abyss, a deep, unsettling scarlet that ripples like liquid blood across the crater's floor. How did a lake in the heart of Maharashtra, India, come to wear such a macabre hue, and why do some whisper that it is more than just an odd mineral reaction? Lanar crater was born 50,000 years ago when a meteoroid, rich in iron and nickel, slammed into the basaltic bedrock, excavating a bowl 20 kilometers across. Over millennia, rain and groundwater filled the hollow, creating a lake whose chemistry is as strange as its origin. The water is highly alkaline, with a pH hovering around 11, and it is saturated with sodium, potassium, and calcium carbonate. When sunlight strikes the suspended iron oxides, the lake glows an ominous crimson, a phenomenon scientists can explain with chemistry, but the intensity of the color at dusk, when the horizon is a bruised violet, feels almost supernatural. Local folklore adds a darker layer. The Korku people tell of a portal of spirits that opened when the sky cracked, swallowing a village that once stood on the rim. They say that on certain nights, when the wind howls through the basalt cliffs, a low humming can be heard, like distant machinery or a forgotten chant, emanating from the lake's depths. Some researchers have recorded faint, low-frequency sounds that cannot be traced to any known natural source, sparking theories that the crater could be a geological echo chamber for Earth's own tremors, or perhaps something else entirely. One hypothesis, proposed by a handful of geophysicists, suggests that the meteor impact created a network of subcrustal fractures, channels that might connect to deeper layers of the planet. If those pathways intersect with pockets of exotic gases or even magnetic anomalies, they could produce a kind of energy doorway, a term more poetic than scientific but nonetheless haunting. The lake's unusually high concentration of dissolved gases, including methane and carbon dioxide, sometimes bubbles up in a silent, rhythmic fashion, as if breathing. The mystery deepens when satellite imagery shows a faint, shimmering halo surrounding the lake during certain solar storms, a halo that disappears as quickly as it appears. Some speculative writers have linked this to the aurora-like effects observed at other impact sites, but the scientific community remains skeptical, citing atmospheric interference. So the question remains, is Lanar merely a natural laboratory where meteorite chemistry and alkaline waters conspire to paint an eerie portrait, or does it conceal a fissure in reality, a thin veil between our world and something beyond? As the crimson surface reflects the stars, the lake whispers its secret, leaving those who stand at its edge with an unsettling feeling that the water is watching back, waiting for the right moment to open its hidden gate. The answer, like the lake itself, lies hidden beneath layers of stone, water, and myth, a darkness that refuses to be fully illuminated. What if the stone you held in your hand had once been a creature so terrifying that even the ancients whispered its name only in the darkness of mountain caves? In the remote highlands of the Peruvian Andes, a series of bizarre fossils have emerged from the limestone cliffs, fossils that some locals call the basilisk. The name itself evokes the legendary serpent king whose gaze could turn a man to stone, and the very discovery seems to echo that myth, bones that look as if they were petrified by a cursed stare. The story begins in 2016, when a small team of amateur geologists, guided by a Quechua shepherd named Intai, stumbled upon a shallow fissure near the village of Saxamarca. Inside, half buried in the ochre-colored matrix, lay a fragment of an elongated skull, its ridged crest resembling a dragon's crown. Beside it lay a series of vertebrae, each bearing an uncanny series of dorsal spines that flared outward like the ribs of an ancient sail. The most striking feature, however, was a pair of hollow eye sockets, perfectly round, as if the creature's eyes had been removed long before the stone closed around them. When the specimens were sent to the National University of San Marcos, the paleontologists were baffled. The morphology did not match any known Cretaceous reptile from South America. Some argued it could be a distorted specimen of a giant lizard, perhaps a mosasaur that somehow ended up far inland. Others noted the presence of a bony plate that seemed to form a protective shield across the neck, a feature reminiscent of the extinct Thalattosaurus*, yet entirely out of place in a high-altitude environment. Adding to the mystery, the surrounding strata were dated to the late Jurassic, roughly 150 million years ago, a period when the Andes were still rising, and the region was dominated by lush river valleys, not the barren, snow-capped peaks we see today. If the creature truly lived there, it would have required a dramatic adaptation to a climate that, according to current models, should have been too cold for ectothermic reptiles. Skeptics quickly pointed out the possibility of a hoax. The region is a hotspot for treasure hunters and folk artisans who sometimes fabricate relics to sell to curious tourists. Photographs of the fossils, released by the university, show a strikingly clean break, as if the bone had been carved before being embedded in the rock. Moreover, a close examination of the surface reveals subtle tool marks, tiny, parallel scratches that are more consistent with a fine stone blade than with natural erosion. Yet not all evidence leans toward deception. Microscopic analysis of the bone tissue reveals growth rings that correspond to seasonal variation, a hallmark of living organisms. Isotopic testing shows a composition of oxygen isotopes that matches high-altitude water sources, suggesting the animal indeed drank from mountain streams. These scientific data points are difficult to fake without sophisticated equipment, which would be unlikely for a local forger. The basilisk fossils have ignited a heated debate in the paleontological community. One theory proposes that they belong to an unknown lineage of mountain reptiles, a group that evolved in isolation on the rising Andes, developing a heavy armor plating to survive the cold and predators alike. Another, more speculative, hypothesis suggests the bones are the remnants of a gigantic, feather-covered pterosaur that ventured inland, using the high valleys as nesting grounds, an idea that would rewrite our understanding of Jurassic ecosystems in South America. Until more complete specimens are unearthed, the basilisk remains a riddle carved in stone. Whether a genuine glimpse into an extinct, high-altitude predator or an elaborate fabrication designed to feed the allure of legends, the fossils continue to stare back at us from the Andes, reminding us that the past still holds secrets that can turn curiosity into dread. And as the wind whistles through the mountain passes, one cannot help but wonder, did the ancient peoples name this creature after a real beast? Or did the very act of naming bring it to life in stone? The answer, for now, lies hidden beneath layers of time, waiting for the next brave soul to dig deeper. The night sky over the remote Siberian taiga was clear, the stars glittering like cold eyes watching an untouched world. Then, without warning, a brilliant flash erupted over the forest, brighter than a full moon, hotter than the sun itself. In an instant, the heavens seemed to split, and a deafening roar rolled across the endless permafrost, shaking the very ground beneath the few nomadic hunters who witnessed it. What happened that day, on June 30, 1908, remains one of the most baffling chapters in natural history, a cosmic mystery that still refuses to yield all its secrets. Eyewitnesses described a fireball streaking across the firmament, followed by a massive shockwave that felled an estimated 80 million trees across a 150 square kilometer swath. No crater was ever found, yet the devastation was unmistakable. Entire forests stand snapped like matchsticks, their trunks twisted and blackened, the air thick with the smell of burnt resin and ozone. The blast was so powerful that it registered on seismographs as far away as Irkutsk, and its acoustic signature was heard hundreds of kilometers to the west, echoing through the night like a distant cannon. Scientists have chased explanations for more than a century. The most widely accepted hypothesis posits the airburst of a meteoroid or comet fragment, perhaps a stony asteroid no larger than a modest house, exploding at an altitude of 5 to 10 kilometers. Such an explosion would release energy equivalent to 10-15 megatons of TNT, dwarfing the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yet, despite this plausible model, several puzzling details persist. The lack of any sizable fragments or a crater challenges the simple impact scenario, prompting some researchers to propose an icy comet nucleus, whose volatile composition could have vaporized entirely before reaching the ground. Other, more exotic theories linger on the fringes of scientific discourse. A handful of Russian physicists in the 1970s suggested a fragment of antimatter, arguing that the intense heat and lack of debris could be explained by matter-antimatter annihilation. More recently, a minority of astronomers has revisited the idea of a miniature black hole passing through Earth's atmosphere, causing a brief, catastrophic release of energy before vanishing without a trace. These notions, while fascinating, remain speculative, lacking concrete evidence. What makes the Tunguska event truly eerie is its lingering echo in the modern world. In the decades that followed, expeditions led by the likes of Leonid Kulik uncovered strange glassy spherules, so-called silicate beads, embedded in the scorched soil, hinting at ultra-high temperatures. Some of these beads contain isotopic ratios that differ from typical terrestrial material, a whisper that perhaps something from beyond our planet brushed past us. Even today, satellite monitoring of near-Earth objects has identified dozens of bodies following orbits that could, under the right conditions, produce a similar airburst. The forest itself has become a living monument to that momentary apocalypse. Overgrown trunks still stand in eerie radial patterns, casting long shadows that seem to point toward an unseen epicenter. Researchers who venture into the zone report an unsettling stillness, as if the land remembers the shock and holds its breath. In the quiet of a Siberian winter, when the aurora dances overhead, one can almost feel the lingering pulse of that long-ago explosion, a reminder that the universe can unleash its fury without warning. So we stand, eyes turned to the heavens, wondering, what other silent travelers lurk in the void, ready to blaze across our world in a flash of light, leaving only questions and scorched earth in their wake? The sky may be calm now, but the Tunguska event tells us that the cosmos still guards its most terrifying secrets, waiting for the next moment when the night will burn again. Deep beneath the wind-scarred cliffs of the Karstic Basin lies a darkness that has swallowed entire histories. The locals call it the Cave of the Forgotten Kings, a yawning mouth in the stone that has never seen sunlight, yet bears the unmistakable marks of a civilization that vanished without a trace. How could a people build such a complex, leave behind a trove of intricate carvings, and then simply disappear from the annals of time? The entrance is guarded by a basalt arch, its surface etched with spirals that repeat in a rhythm like a forgotten chant. Inside, the air is cold and heavy, tinged with the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic. The first chamber opens onto a vast subterranean hall, its walls covered in polished limestone panels, each bearing reliefs of regal figures, bearded men with crowns of twisted antler, women holding scepters of unknown alloy, and creatures that seem part human, part serpent. The artistry is astonishingly precise, rivaling the finest works of ancient Egypt, yet no comparable style appears in any known culture. Scattered throughout the hall are stone tablets of a script that defies classification. Scholars have tried to match its glyphs to the Indus, the Proto-Sinaitic, and even the enigmatic Rongorongo of Easter Island, but the symbols remain stubbornly indecipherable. Some suggest the language could be an early form of a lost Afro-Eurasian tongue. Others argue it may be a wholly unique linguistic system, created by a people isolated from all known trade routes. Beyond the hall lies a network of tunnels, each lined with glittering quartz veins that pulse with a faint, almost imperceptible hum when the wind brushes through. In the deepest recesses, explorers have uncovered a series of massive stone doors, each sealed with a mechanism of interlocking basalt spheres that seem to require a specific sequence to open. No modern tool can turn these locks, and no footprints have been found beyond them, as if the builders intended the inner sanctum to remain forever untouched. Archaeologists who have dared to spend nights within the cave report an unsettling phenomenon: a low, resonant vibration that seems to emanate from the stone itself, growing louder as one approaches the innermost chambers. Some have recorded a faint, melodic tone, almost like a choir of distant voices, caught on their audio equipment, yet when they return to the surface, the recordings are blank. Is it the echo of a forgotten ritual, or a natural acoustic effect amplified by the cave's geometry? The most chilling clue lies in a shallow burial pit near the main entrance, where dozens of skeletal remains were found, each interred with a small obsidian disc stamped with the same mysterious emblem seen on the walls. The bones show no sign of trauma. The individuals appear to have simply ceased to live, their bodies left untouched for centuries. DNA analysis reveals a genetic profile unlike any known population in the region, hinting at a people who may have been isolated long before recorded history began. So the question remains, suspended in the stale, echoing darkness. What force, whether disease, environmental cataclysm, or something far stranger, could have erased an entire culture so completely that even its name was swallowed by the stone? The Cave of the Forgotten Kings keeps it secret, and every echo that rolls off its walls reminds us that there are chapters of humanity still written in shadows, waiting for a light brave enough to illuminate them. What if an ancient codex, sealed in ice for centuries, could rewrite everything we think we know about medieval science and mythology? Deep beneath the relentless white of the Siberian tundra, a team of archaeologists uncovered a vellum bundle so exquisitely preserved that even the faintest ink strokes glimmered like frost on a window pane. The find, quickly dubbed the Arctic Voynich, bears an uncanny resemblance to its infamous namesake, a manuscript riddled with unknown symbols, plant illustrations that defy modern taxonomy, and astronomical diagrams that seem to map constellations never recorded in the northern skies. The first clue appeared when a weather-beaten wooden box, bound with reindeer hide, was unearthed near the abandoned settlement of Verkhoyansk, a place already whispered about in local folklore for its silent nights and dancing lights. Inside, the pages were coated in a thin layer of permafrost, protecting them from decay for over 1,000 years. Radiocarbon dating of the parchment places its creation somewhere between the 9th and 12th centuries, a period when the region was thought to be sparsely inhabited, if at all. What makes this manuscript truly perplexing are the drawings. One illustration shows a plant with leaves arranged in a perfect spiral, bearing fruit that resembles both a pine cone and a sea urchin, a combination found nowhere on Earth. Another depicts a series of concentric circles intersected by lines that mirror the geometry of the aurora borealis, yet the accompanying marginalia label the phenomenon as the sky's breath. Scholars have tried to match these images with known species and celestial events, but every attempt ends in dead ends. The text itself is written in an unknown script, composed of looping characters that echo the undeciphered alphabet of the original Voynich manuscript. Statistical analysis reveals a structure similar to natural language. The frequency of certain glyphs follows Zipf's law, and the text exhibits consistent word length patterns. Yet no known language, Slavic or otherwise, aligns with the cipher. Some linguists suggest a constructed code, perhaps a monastic secret, while others entertain the more exotic hypothesis that it records observations from a lost Arctic civilization, people who may have navigated the frozen seas long before the Vikings set foot on Greenland. Adding to the mystery, a faint scent of pine resin lingers in the air when the pages are opened, as if the manuscript had been stored alongside a stash of traditional medicines. Chemical analysis of the ink uncovered trace amounts of copper sulfide, a pigment used by Byzantine scribes, but also rare minerals only found in the mineral-rich soils of the Siberian plateau. Could a trade route have existed that linked the Byzantine world with the remote Arctic, or is this an entirely unknown conduit of cultural exchange? The discovery has sparked heated debate among historians, cryptographers, and even climate scientists. Some argue that the manuscript could be a hoax, an elaborate 20th century forgery placed in the ice to attract attention. Others point to the consistent layering of ice crystals within the parchment, a phenomenon that would be nearly impossible to replicate artificially. As the research continues, the Arctic Voynich remains locked in its icy prison, whispering riddles that echo through time. Will future generations finally crack the code and unveil a lost chapter of human knowledge, or will the manuscript forever stay a silent witness to a civilization that vanished beneath the snow? The answer lies somewhere between the frozen ink and the endless night of the far north, waiting for a mind bold enough to read between the lines. The wind howls across the endless dunes of the Namib, carrying with it a chill that seems to come from another world. In the middle of that barren sea of sand, half buried in ochre dust, stands a monolith taller than a 2-story house, its surface smooth and black as obsidian, etched with strange, spiraling markings that no known language can decode. For centuries, travelers whispered that the stone was a sentinel of the desert, a relic of a forgotten tribe, but the real mystery began the night the monolith shifted. It was a full moon when a lone researcher, camped near the edge of the dunes, heard a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. The next morning, the monolith was found a full 30 meters away, its base turned at an impossible angle, as if some unseen hand had lifted and set it down. No footprints, no broken branches, no disturbance of the sand could explain the movement. Locals and elders speak of the walking stone, a tale passed down through oral tradition, describing a gigantic rock that roams the desert when the stars align. Scientists who have examined the site note that the stone's composition is unlike any known natural formation in the region. It contains traces of a rare mineral that reacts to temperature changes by expanding and contracting in a way that could, in theory, generate a slow, rolling motion. Yet the monolith moved in a single, decisive glide, not a gradual crawl. One hypothesis suggests a hidden underground cavity filled with pressurized air, released by nightly temperature drops, could act like a pneumatic piston. Another, more speculative, theory points to a forgotten ancient mechanism, perhaps a network of buried levers and counterweights, engineered by a civilization that vanished long before recorded history. What is most unsettling is that after each movement, the monolith leaves behind a faint, metallic scent, detectable only by those who linger long enough. Some witnesses claim that the air around it carries a low-frequency vibration that induces a sense of vertigo, as if the stone itself is humming a forgotten song. The monolith has now moved 3 times in the past year, each relocation occurring at the exact moment the desert experiences a rare alignment of the Milky Way's core with the southern horizon. No cameras have captured the act, no satellite has recorded a shift, only the empty footprints of those who arrived too late, and the endless whisper of the dunes. As the night deepens and the monolith stands once more, the question remains: is this stone a relic of a lost technology, a natural phenomenon we have yet to understand, or something far older and far more enigmatic, silently walking the desert long after humanity has forgotten the path? The answer, if it ever comes, lies buried beneath the shifting sands, waiting for the next moonlit night to reveal its secret. They say the Ottoman Empire kept more secrets than any library of the age, hidden in the vaulted chambers of Topkapi, in the dust-covered ledgers of provincial courts, and, most chillingly, in a single, obsidian-black talisman that has haunted scholars for centuries. The object, known only as the Black Sun, bears a seal that glitters like a dying star, an intricate sunburst etched in gold and surrounded by a ring of incomprehensible symbols that have never been matched to any known script. Its first appearance in the archives comes from a marginal note in a 1587 fiscal register, a shipment of black stone, blessed by the Janissary mystics, to be kept in the palace treasury. From that terse entry, a cascade of ominous reports begins to surface. Within a year, the governor of Bursar recorded a sudden, inexplicable plague that killed half the city's livestock. The afflicted animals were found with their throats torn open, as if something invisible had clawed at them from within. The same month, a caravan returning from the Black Sea coast reported that its leader, a wealthy merchant named Iskender, vanished in the desert night, leaving only his cloak draped over a solitary obsidian stone that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. Over the next decades, the talisman resurfaced in the most unlikely of places, a monastery high in the Pontic Mountains, where monks whispered of a shadow sun that turned prayers into screams. A lone copyist in Istanbul, tasked with transcribing the asterisk Divan letter 131 Humayan asterisk, the imperial council's minutes, died after 3 days of fever, clutching a scrap of parchment that bore the same sunburst symbol. The parchment was later found burned, but the ash retained the faint outline of the emblem, as if the fire itself refused to erase it. One of the most compelling entries comes from a 1623 court inquiry. A noblewoman, Princess Safii, claimed that a necklace bearing the Black Sun had been gifted to her by a mysterious stranger during a moonless night in the palace gardens. Within hours of wearing it, she reported hearing whispers in an ancient tongue she could not understand, and the palace walls began to weep a thick, black ichor. The following morning, the entire east wing of the palace collapsed without any apparent structural flaw, burying dozens of servants under rubble that smelled of burnt incense and ozone. Scholars who have examined the talisman note that the symbols surrounding the sunburst resemble fragments of the ancient Avestan script mixed with runic-like strokes, hinting at a possible synthesis of Eastern mysticism and forgotten steppe shamanism. Some researchers propose that the Black Sun was a relic of the lost Hatchin cult, a pre-Anatolian civilization whose worship centered on a dying star that devoured light. Others argue it was a deliberately crafted curse object, designed by a secretive order known as the Beyaz Karinka the White Ant, who believed that by binding a fragment of the night sky to a physical token, they could summon darkness into the world. Even today, the Black Sun remains locked in a steel chest deep within the Topkapi vault, sealed with a chain of iron forged by a 17th-century blacksmith whose name has been erased from all records. The chain bears an inscription that reads, in a language no one can translate, "When the sun is swallowed, the world shall remember the night." Researchers who have dared to touch the talisman report an overwhelming sense of vertigo, a sudden cold that seeps into the marrow, and the uncanny feeling that unseen eyes are watching from the shadows. The curse, if it truly exists, has never been fully broken. Every time the talisman is removed, a new tragedy follows, A plague, a fire, a sudden collapse. A whispered warning that the darkness is patient, waiting for the day when the black sun will finally rise again, not in the sky, but in the hearts of those who dare to uncover its secrets. Deep in the mountains of central Japan, beyond the infamous silence of Aokigahara, lies a forest that most maps refuse to name. Travelers who have slipped off the well-trodden trail speak of a place locals call Kage no Mori, the shadow forest, a twin of the suicide woods that seems to devour even the faintest glimmer of daylight. How can a living forest swallow light, and what ancient secret pulses through its blackened veins? The first reports came in the late 1970s, when a group of botanists from Kyoto University set out to study the unique mosses that carpet the limestone cliffs nearby. Their instruments recorded a sudden, inexplicable drop in luminosity the moment they crossed an unseen boundary. Sunlight that should have pierced the canopy was reduced to a murky twilight, as if an invisible veil had been drawn across the sky. Even the most powerful headlamps flickered, their beams turning a sickly amber before dying altogether. Scientists who later examined the site discovered a dense network of fungal mycelium far more extensive than any known species. The threads, some a meter thick, intertwined with the roots of ancient firs that have stood for millennia. Laboratory analysis revealed that the mycelium contains a pigment unlike any chlorophyll or melanin, a dark, glassy compound that absorbs across the visible spectrum with near-perfect efficiency. In controlled conditions, a slab of this fungus reduced incoming light to less than 1%, effectively creating a biological blackout. Local folklore whispers that the forest is a living memorial to a forgotten tribe that vanished during the Heian period. Legends tell of a people who, fearing invasion, performed a ritual to hide the world from their enemies. They sowed spores of a secret fungus, invoking the kami of darkness to cloak their valley. The tribe never reappeared, but the fungus persisted, growing stronger with each passing century. What remains baffling is the ecosystem that thrives within this perpetual dusk. Bioluminescent insects flicker like distant stars, while a species of salamander, previously unknown to science, has evolved eyes that detect infrared, allowing it to hunt in near-total darkness. Even the trees themselves appear to have adapted. Their bark exudes a faint phosphorescent sheen, a possible defensive response to the light-absorbing fungus. No one knows whether Kage no Mori is a natural anomaly, a relic of ancient alchemy, or a living relic of a forgotten rite. The forest still stands, an abyss of shadow that swallows the sun, inviting us to wonder what other secrets the earth can conceal when it learns to eat its own light. The question lingers like the chill in the air. Is the darkness a protection, a curse, or simply nature's most profound mystery, waiting for a mind brave enough to step inside and never return? What if the ocean's deepest abyss is not a silent void, but a living, humming cathedral, echoing a sound no human ear has ever been meant to hear? Beneath the crushing pressure of the Mariana Trench, at depths where sunlight has never penetrated, scientists aboard the submersible Narrate recorded a low-frequency vibration that seemed to rise from the very rock itself. The tone was steady, a mournful drone that resonated at roughly 12 hertz, just below the threshold of human perception, yet unmistakably present on the hydrophone recordings. When the crew first noticed the hum, the instruments flickered, and the lights on the vessel dimmed as if the ocean were swallowing the power. The sound persisted, unaffected by the submersible's movements, echoing off the trench walls like a forgotten hymn. Researchers compared the frequency to the Earth hum detected by seismometers worldwide, a background rumble caused by ocean waves and atmospheric pressure. But this trench hum was different. It was localized, far stronger, and it appeared to fluctuate in sync with subtle changes in the water's temperature and salinity. Some oceanographers suggest that the vibration could be the result of micro-fracturing in the subduction zone's basalt, a slow, continuous grinding of tectonic plates. Others propose a more exotic origin, bioluminescent colonies of unknown deep-sea organisms that generate sound through rapid gas expulsion, a biological chorus hidden for millennia. A third, more speculative theory points to the presence of a massive, cavernous void filled with trapped gases, resonating like a natural organ pipe whenever pressure shifts. The mystery deepens with the discovery of metallic nodules embedded with strange, fractal markings near the source of the hum. These markings bear no resemblance to any known human script, yet they repeat a pattern that seems to mirror the waveforms of the sound itself, as if the trench is trying to communicate. When the *narrate* surfaced, the recordings were sent to labs across the globe, but no one has yet reproduced the exact tone in a controlled environment. To this day, the Mariana Trench holds its secret close, its dark corridors reverberating with a sound that may be the planet's own sigh, a reminder that even the deepest places on Earth are not exempt from mysteries that whisper in the dark. The hum remains unanswered, an eerie echo that haunts every sonar ping, urging us to ask, what lies beyond the reach of light? And can we ever truly listen to the ocean's hidden voice? The last whisper of a world that hides its secrets in the very dust of the ages is a question that has haunted scholars and wanderers alike. What remains when every stone, every inscription, every shattered fragment of evidence has been swallowed by time? In the frozen heart of the Siberian taiga, a shallow pit uncovered by a lone hunter in 2012 revealed a circle of perfectly cut basalt blocks, each bearing a shallow groove that aligns with the stars of a night that never existed in any known calendar. No records, no oral traditions speak of a civilization that could have raised such a stone ring in a place where even the wind refuses to settle. Yet the stones stand, untouched by the relentless frost, as if waiting for a purpose long forgotten. Further east, on a remote stretch of the Namib Desert, a series of shallow depressions form a pattern that mirrors the constellations of the Southern Cross. When the sun sinks, the shadows cast by the dunes trace an impossible geometric figure that disappears with the first light. No archaeologists have found artifacts, no carbon dates can be taken. The ground itself refuses to yield any trace of human touch, as though the creators were never bound by flesh. And then there is the enigma of the silent library, buried beneath the ruins of a Bronze Age citadel in the Aegean. Deep within the collapsed foundations, explorers stumbled upon a chamber lined with stone shelves, each bearing tiny, perfectly polished slate tablets. The tablets are blank, no glyph, no ink, no carving. Yet when the wind sweeps through the fissures, a faint, rhythmic tapping resonates from the shelves, like a forgotten code trying to speak. Some suggest the tablets were meant to record sounds. Others think they were a ritualistic placeholder for a language that never left a trace. The silence is deafening, and the lack of any written record makes the mystery impenetrable. Even the oceans guard their own unanswered riddles. In the depths off the coast of Madagascar, a massive basalt formation rises from the abyss like a submerged cathedral. Its walls are etched with spirals and interlocking loops that repeat with mathematical precision, yet no marine creature or geological process can account for such deliberate design. The formation appears to be a monument, perhaps a memorial, but no shipwreck. No ancient map points to a civilization that could have erected it beneath crushing pressures. What do these fragments, these impossible alignments, these silent chambers, tell us when the world has erased every other clue? They whisper that humanity, or something akin to it, once reached farther, thought deeper, and perhaps understood a language of stone and shadow that we can no longer decode. The absence of evidence becomes its own evidence, a reminder that the earth has been a canvas for countless hands, many of which have vanished without a trace, leaving only the echo of their ambition behind. As the night settles over these forgotten sites, one cannot shake the feeling that the true puzzle lies not in what we find, but in the abyss of what has already been lost, waiting for a mind brave enough to listen to the silence.